Have you ever finished a perfectly normal day at work, or just a casual dinner with friends, and walked through your front door feeling totally hollowed out? Like you sit down at your desk, fully intending to finally start that project you've been putting off, but instead, you just stare blankly at the wall. You feel like you've literally just run a marathon, even though you haven't even left your chair. Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into exactly why you feel this way. We're going to break down how you're trying to operate with a brain that was never actually designed for the modern world you're trying to build, and more importantly, how to completely redesign your physical and mental space to reclaim your ambition. So why are you so exhausted? Look, it is incredibly easy to just brush this off, to tell yourself, oh, I'm just tired, or I'm just an introvert, or maybe even that you just lack willpower. But the truth is hiding in plain sight. This specific kind of exhaustion isn't just physical fatigue. It is the heavy, crushing weight of everyone else's expectations constantly crashing into a life that really wasn't built for your true self. You see, you aren't failing because you lack drive. Not at all. You're exhausted because you're carrying a burden that was never, ever meant to be yours in the first place. And this brings us to a really brilliant concept from habits expert James Clear. He calls it the architecture of failure. Basically, this is a physical and psychological environment that is designed to actively sabotage your true ambition, all while you're busy maintaining this perfect performance for everyone else. Think about it. Your current space is actively working against your own soul. It's held together by this mask that the legendary psychologist Carl Jung actually warned would eventually erase who you are.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the biology of laziness, and why willpower always loses. We really need to look at the contrast between these two forces. On one hand, you have willpower. When you try to force yourself to be this supercomputer of productivity using just your willpower, you are literally fighting against millions of years of human evolution. And on the flip side, we have what's known as cognitive ease. You see, your brain doesn't actually care about your long-term goals or your career ambitions. It evolved for one thing: immediate survival. We are neurobiologically programmed to conserve energy. So naturally, your brain is always going to prefer the couch and mindlessly scrolling TikTok over a grueling deep work session.
The main takeaway here is that your brain isn't lazy. It is just highly efficient. Seriously, this is not a character flaw. If your phone is the very first thing you see when you wake up, but your journal is buried in some bottom drawer, your brain is just doing its job by picking the easiest possible path. Trying to fight your own evolutionary biology with raw willpower and, a couple of motivational quotes, that is a battle you are going to lose every single time fatigue sets in. But biology is only half the story here. Let's move on to Section 2, the cost of the persona and maintaining the surveillance system. To survive socially, we often build a psychological mask. Carl Jung famously called this the persona. And the burden of maintaining this mask is massive. It's built around ensuring that you are always legible, acceptable, and easy for society to digest. For a lot of us, it's driven by this intense need to just never disappoint anyone. You end up becoming an absolute expert at reading the room and editing your own truth in real time just to fit what other people need. But running this constant 24/7 internal surveillance system, that requires a staggering amount of energy. And that is what's truly draining you hollow. Jung had this incredibly profound observation about this. He said it leads to, quote, maximum adaptation to society, minimum access to yourself. When you organize your entire existence around pleasing everyone around you, you are constantly leaking psychic energy. You literally leave no room for the person you actually are. Just think about the sheer difference between these two realities. First, you have the polished prison. This is a space where the books are just for show, the layout is kept pristine for guests, it's entirely designed for who you think you should be. But then you have the sanctuary, which is designed for who you actually are. When you live in a polished prison, doing things for yourself, your own success, actually starts to feel like a threat to the fake peace you've worked so hard to maintain. So, how on earth do we begin to rebuild? Let's dive into Section 3, designing your choice architecture. Moving from willpower to design. James Clear gives us the ultimate tool for this, known as choice architecture. This is the simple but powerful concept that our behavior is heavily shaped by whatever is most visible and accessible in our environment. We have to stop fighting our brains and start actively manipulating our environments instead. Because self-control, it's an incredibly fragile resource, and it will crumble in a poorly designed space. Here is exactly how this translates into practical, everyday steps. Step 1, make your desired habits obvious. Want to read more before bed? Put the book literally on your pillow. Step 2, make them easy.
Want to run? Leave your sneakers right by the front door. And step 3, make bad habits invisible. Put your phone in a completely different room when you need to focus. What you're doing here is setting traps for your own success. You're manipulating things so that the right behavior actually requires less energy than the wrong one.
Now, once you remove that physical friction, we have to make the internal shift. Section 4, reclaiming internal authority, the psychological leap. You have to stop putting your identity on trial. What do I mean by that? Well, every single time you justify your personal choices, or explain your boundaries, or over-apologize for a simple clean no, you are essentially begging for permission to exist in your own life. You are actively handing over your internal power. Notice the massive shift in power dynamics here. On one side, we have maximum legibility. Sure, you're pleasing everyone, but you are completely drained. On the other side is internal authority. This is where you flat out refuse to participate in the theater of other people's expectations. Now, claiming this sovereignty, it might actually cause a brief crisis in your social circles, mostly because you are no longer functional or convenient for them. But honestly, that is exactly the moment your own life truly begins. Jung argued that having fidelity to the law of one's own being is the only real path to true health. You have to embrace being a little confusing or even inconvenient to those who only ever valued you for the role you played for them. It's the only way to avoid the punishment of living a completely artificial life. You don't need to win an argument, you just need to stand solid in your own presence. And that leads us right into the final step of our rebuild, Section 5, the identity shift, moving from doing to being. Building a truly authentic identity means recognizing that real discipline isn't forced. It's just a natural side effect of knowing exactly who you are. Stop trying to act disciplined. Instead, start casting small votes for the exact person you want to become, someone who values their own peace way more than external approval. You do this by stacking micro habits. For example, meditating for just 2 minutes right after you brush your teeth. This creates what's called neural coupling, which helps make your new, authentic life completely automatic. The cage of expectations only stands as long as you maintain it. Let that sink in. Absolutely no one is going to come to your house and redesign your life for you. That radical responsibility is yours and yours alone. But here is the most beautiful secret of all. The door to this cage, the one you built in childhood to stay safe, it was never actually locked. You've just been holding it closed because you were afraid that walking through it meant losing love. So I have to ask, are you ready to drop the weight of the mask? Are you finally ready to stop being a statistical cog in someone else's system and start being the sovereign author of your own story? If you are ready to dismantle this architecture of failure, I want you to make a symbolic declaration right now. Look around your room, find just one thing that represents a performance for someone else, and commit to throwing it out or hiding it today. Then I want you to leave a comment below saying, "I choose my peace." This isn't just some catchy phrase. Writing it down is a real commitment to your new identity, a first vote for your own sovereignty. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Start redesigning your space today, and I'll see you next time as we continue to build a life that actually belongs to you.